When I woke up after my ovarian cyst surgery, I heard the surgeon whispering to someone, "Tell her I have the envelope. Everything is in place." Who was she? What envelope? I tried to focus, but everything became blurry. It wasn't until I fully came to that I accidentally glanced through the small window and witnessed a scene that made my blood run cold. I'm truly grateful you're here with me right now. It means more than you know. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? I love seeing how far these stories travel and connecting with you across different places. And just a quick note, this story contains fictionalized elements woven in for storytelling and reflection. Any similarity to real names or places is purely coincidental. What truly matters is the message it carries. I never thought the moment that would shatter my life would come while I was lying on an operating table, halfway between consciousness and oblivion. The overhead lights of Massachusetts General Hospital's OR7 blurred into halos above me, their sterile brightness making my eyes water. I'd scheduled this ovarian cyst surgery for mid-September, timing it perfectly between board meetings at Hayes Pharmaceuticals. Everything was supposed to be routine. Just a simple laparoscopic procedure. Dr. Richard Donovan had assured me 3 weeks earlier, his confident smile perfectly calibrated. "You'll be home by tomorrow afternoon." At 55, I'd learned to trust my instincts about people. Donovan had impeccable credentials, Harvard Med, 15 years at Mass General. But there was something about the way his eyes never quite held mine that I'd filed away. Still, I needed the surgery, and I wasn't about to let a manageable medical issue interfere with the company I'd spent 3 decades building. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Ramirez, had explained they'd use twilight sedation. "You'll be semi-conscious. Might hear voices, feel some pressure, but no pain. Most patients don't remember anything afterward." Most patients. I felt the medication pulling me under that strange floating sensation like being wrapped in warm water. The sounds around me, steady monitor beeps, quiet murmurs, began to fade into comfortable distance. Then I heard it. Donovan's voice, low and urgent, closer than it should have been. Through the fog of sedation, his words cut through with startling clarity. "Tell her I have the envelope. Everything is in place." My mind tried to grab onto those words. Her. Who was her what envelope? This was an operating room. What could possibly need to be in place, besides surgical instruments? I tried to open my eyes, tried to ask what he meant, but my body wouldn't obey. The medication was winning, pulling me down. A woman's voice responded, not one of the nurses, someone else, but I couldn't make out the words before everything went black. When I surfaced, the world came back in pieces. Soft beeping, antiseptic smell, warm blanket. My mouth tasted like cotton and my abdomen ached with a dull throb. "Mrs. Hayes, you're in recovery." A young nurse in navy scrubs smiled down at me. Her name tag read Jennifer Payne, RN. The surgery went perfectly. I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. She held ice chips to my lips. The recovery room was small, divided by curtains, with a narrow window looking out onto a corridor. "Just rest," she said gently. "I'll be right over there if you need anything." My eyes drifted closed. Had I dreamed those words, twilight sedation could cause strange perceptions. Maybe I'd mixed hallway conversations with dreams. But then I heard footsteps outside that window. I turned my head, squinting through the brightness. Through the small rectangular glass, I had a clear view of the hallway. 2 figures stood there about 10 feet away. Dr. Donovan still in surgical scrubs, his mask pulled down. And a woman with honey blonde hair in an expensive camel coat I recognized because I'd bought it for her last Christmas. My heart began to race. The monitors accelerated their beeping. I watched as Donovan reached into his jacket and pulled out a white envelope. Not a medical chart, not a prescription. A plain white business envelope. The woman took it, fingers closing around it with a quick, practiced motion. She glanced down at it, then up at Donovan, saying something I couldn't hear through the glass. He responded, his hand reaching up to touch her shoulder. It wasn't a doctor's touch. It was familiar, intimate. She turned slightly, tucking the envelope into her purse. The hallway lights caught her face fully. My daughter, Olivia. The monitors shrieked as my heart rate spiked. Nurse Jennifer rushed back. "Mrs. Hayes, are you in pain?" But I couldn't answer. I could only stare at that window, at the space where my daughter had been standing seconds before, now empty, except for fluorescent lights and sterile white walls. Tell her I have the envelope. Her. My 30-year-old daughter who ran the financial operations of my company. My daughter who I'd raised alone after Edward passed 6 years ago. My daughter who was supposed to be in a board meeting downtown. My daughter who had just received a mysterious envelope from my surgeon while I lay recovering from a procedure that had put me completely at his mercy. The medication still clouded my thoughts, but one thing cut through with diamond clarity. Something was very, very wrong. I forced my breathing to stay slow and even the way it sounds when someone's asleep. Through my half-closed lids, I watched the corridor beyond that narrow recovery room window. The medication still dulled my senses, but adrenaline was burning through the fog. Nurse Jennifer had left to check on another patient. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. To anyone glancing in, I was just another post-op patient drifting in and out of rest. But I was wide awake now. Olivia stood in that hallway with Dr. Donovan, the white envelope now tucked into her burgundy leather purse, the Valentino I'd given her last April. Even from this distance, I could see her posture. Not a worried daughter checking on her mother's surgeon. This was the stance she used in boardrooms at Hayes Pharmaceuticals, the one that said she was in control. Donovan said something, gesturing with his hands. Olivia's head tilted slightly, and then she smiled. It wasn't the warm smile she gave me over Sunday brunch in Beacon Hill. This smile was cool, calculated. The kind of expression I'd seen her use when closing difficult deals right before she got exactly what she wanted. My stomach tightened, and it had nothing to do with the incisions in my abdomen. Donovan's hand moved to her shoulder, fingers resting there just a moment too long. She didn't pull away. Her body language spoke of familiarity. When had my daughter and my surgeon become comfortable with each other? I'd met Donovan 6 weeks ago at my initial consultation. Olivia hadn't been there. She'd been in meetings all day, she'd said. Had they already known each other then? A memory surfaced sharp despite the lingering anesthesia. 2 weeks ago, late August, Olivia had told me she was flying to Denver for a pharmaceutical conference, FDA regulations, production timelines, the West and downtown. 3 days of panels she couldn't miss. But I'd seen her. I'd been having lunch at Sansi on Newberry Street, and through the restaurant's windows, I'd watched my daughter walk past with a man I couldn't see clearly. They'd been laughing, her hand on his arm. I'd almost called out, but something stopped me. The way she'd glanced around before ducking into a coffee shop, the quick, furtive movement of someone who didn't want to be seen. I'd convinced myself I was mistaken. Boston was small. Plenty of blonde women walked through Back Bay. Olivia was in Denver. She'd sent me photos, conference badges, hotel room views, the whole performance. Except now, watching her accept an envelope from my surgeon with practiced ease, I knew. She'd lied. Donovan stepped back. Professional distance restored. Olivia checked her phone, looking busy, looking normal, and turned toward the elevators. I held my breath. She paused, checking her reflection in a polished supply cart, smoothing her hair. For one terrible moment, I thought she might look toward the recovery room. Then she was gone, heels clicking against linoleum, until the sound faded completely. Mrs. Hayes. I nearly jumped. Nurse Jennifer had returned, her face creased with concern. Your heart rate spiked again. Are you feeling anxious? I'm fine. I managed, voice still rough. Just strange dreams, the medication. She nodded sympathetically, checking my IV line. Dr. Donovan will be by in about an hour for your post-op instructions. Dr. Donovan, the man who'd just handed my daughter an envelope like they were co-conspirators. Actually, I said carefully, has my daughter been by Olivia Hayes? Jennifer's expression brightened. Oh, yes. She was here right after you went into the OR. Asked me to tell you she had to run to a meeting, but she'd call tonight. Such a devoted daughter, she seemed so worried. Worried? Right. Thank you, I whispered. Jennifer adjusted my blanket and moved away, leaving me alone with the steady beep of monitors. I stared at that empty corridor. My daughter, who I'd raised alone after Edward's heart attack 6 years ago, who I'd groomed to take over as CFO of Hayes Pharmaceuticals, who I'd trusted with the financial future of everything I'd built, had just lied to a nurse about where she'd been, had accepted a mysterious envelope from my surgeon, had been in Boston when she'd told me she was in Denver. The medication was wearing off, clarity returning with each passing minute. Why was Olivia meeting secretly with Dr. Donovan? What was in that envelope? And why did I suddenly feel like the only person who didn't know what was really happening in my own life? 2 days after the surgery, I sat in a worn leather chair watching September sunlight filter through dusty Venetian blinds. Howard Campbell's private investigation office occupied the 3rd floor of a brick building in downtown Crossing. Same battered oak desk I remembered from years ago. Same Harvard diploma on the wall, class of 1991, the year we'd both graduated. Howard leaned back in his chair, studying me with the careful attention he'd used during our evidence class 33 years ago. Back then, he'd planned on becoming a prosecutor. Life had taken him in a different direction, but he'd kept the prosecutor's instinct for finding holes in people's stories. "You look tired," he said. "I had surgery 48 hours ago, and you're here instead of resting." His eyebrows rose. This must be serious. I'd called him yesterday, keeping my voice low even though I was alone in the house. Some conversations felt dangerous even when no one was listening. "I need you to look into something," I said, quietly. Howard picked up a pen, pulled a yellow legal pad toward him. "I'm listening." I told him everything. The words I'd overheard under sedation, seeing Olivia accept the envelope from Dr. Donovan through the recovery room window, the Denver conference that wasn't. Howard's pen moved steadily, but his expression didn't change. One of his gifts, he never looked shocked, never made you feel foolish for your suspicions. When I finished, he set down the pen. "You're sure it was Olivia?" "I know my own daughter." "And you haven't confronted her?" "Not yet." I shifted in the chair, abdomen still tender. If I'm wrong, I'll have damaged our relationship over nothing. But if I'm right... I couldn't finish that sentence. Howard nodded slowly. "You want to know what's in the envelope?" "I want to know why my surgeon is handing my CFO secret envelopes, why she lied about Denver." I took a breath. "I want to know if I'm losing my mind or if something is actually wrong." "You're not losing your mind." He pulled his laptop toward him. "Olivia still has signatory authority on the company accounts. She's chief financial officer. She has access to everything except my personal holdings." "When did she take that position?" 3 years ago, I promoted her myself. She earned it." Howard's expression remained neutral. 30 years of friendship meant we didn't always need words. He typed in silence for several minutes. Then he stopped, leaning forward. "Carolyn, when was the last time you personally reviewed the company's raw transactions?" "I get monthly reports. Olivia prepares them." "Look at this." He turned the laptop toward me. On the screen were bank records, Hayes Pharmaceuticals' primary operating account. 2 lines highlighted in yellow. June 18th, 2024. Cash withdrawal, $15,000. August 23rd, 2024. Cash withdrawal, $12,800. Cash withdrawals. I stared. We don't do cash transactions. Everything goes through corporate cards for the audit trail. Exactly. Howard pulled the laptop back. Both withdrawals were authorized with Olivia's credentials, both processed at the same branch in Back Bay. He paused. "The branch 2 blocks from the coffee shop where you saw her in August." The room felt smaller suddenly. It doesn't prove anything yet," Howard agreed. "But it's worth asking why your CFO is pulling large amounts of cash without explanation, especially amounts under the IRS reporting threshold." $15,000. The federal threshold for cash transaction reports was $10,000. $12,800 was safely under that limit, too. Someone who knew financial regulations would know exactly how much to withdraw without triggering flags. Someone like my daughter. There could be legitimate reasons, I said, hearing the weakness in my own voice. There could be. Howard closed the laptop, but combined with secret meetings and mysterious envelopes, he picked up his pen. "Carolyn, my job is to find the truth, and right now the truth is hiding from you." I sat there, hands clenched in my lap, feeling the stitches pull. What do I do? Let me look into it. Dr. Donovan, first background financials, any red flags. Then Olivia's movements over the past few months. He stood, came around the desk, put a hand on my shoulder, the same steadying gesture he'd used 6 years ago when Edward passed. "I'll be discreet. If there's nothing there, you'll have peace of mind. He paused. Carolyn, if your daughter is involved with your surgeon, we need to know why. I'll start surveillance tomorrow. The encrypted email arrived Thursday evening while I sat at my kitchen table in Beacon Hill pretending to review quarterly reports. Subject line package ready for pickup. Howard's code for, I have something you need to see. I entered the decryption password, my mother's maiden name, backward. The file opened to dozens of photographs. The first showed Olivia walking into Millennium Tower's lobby, Boston's gleaming high-rise in downtown Crossing. Oversized sunglasses hid half her face, but I recognized the Burberry trench coat. Timestamp September 15th, 2024, 7:43 p.m. Next image, different day. September 17th, 2024, 8:15 p.m. She carried her leather portfolio for confidential documents. The third photo made my stomach drop. September 19th, 2024, 6:52 p.m. Olivia stood in the same lobby, but this time Dr. Donovan was with her. His hand rested on the small of her back as they walked toward the elevators. The gesture was casual, familiar. 3 visits in 5 days. My phone buzzed. Howard. Did you get the photos? I'm looking at them now. I forced my breathing to stay even. How long has this been going on? At least 3 months based on the building's security log. Papers rustled. But the photos are just the beginning. I closed my eyes briefly. Go ahead. Dr. Richard Donovan purchased his penthouse in January 2019, Unit 4207, $1.2 million. He paused. Down payment was $350,000 in cash. His salary at Mass General is $285,000 a year. I did the math automatically. A surgeon making $285,000 couldn't save $350,000 cash while maintaining Donovan's lifestyle, expensive suits, luxury car country club membership. Where did the money come from? Still trying to figure that out. His bank records show a pattern of cash deposits over 6 years. $7,000 here, $12,000 there, always under $10,000. The IRS reporting threshold. Deposits over $10,000 triggered automatic scrutiny. Staying below that limit was classic structuring. Someone who knows financial regulations, I said quietly. Exactly. Howard's keyboard clicked. There's more. Before Mass General, he worked at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta from 2008 to 2016. Left under circumstances they won't discuss, but I found sealed litigation records, medical negligence, falsification of patient records. The kitchen felt colder. He was sued, settled confidentially in early 2016. 6 months later, he started at Mass General with glowing recommendations. Howard's tone hardened. Someone buried that case, Carolyn. Someone with influence or money. I stared at the photo of Olivia and Donovan, his hand on her back. When had she met him? Before my surgery. Before she'd recommended I schedule the procedure. Did he lose his license? No. Medical board cleared him insufficient evidence, but he resigned from Emory anyway. Papers shuffled. The Atlanta case is buried deep. I need to talk to someone who was there. Who? His ex-wife, Diane Fletcher. They divorced in 2016, right after the lawsuit. She still lives in Atlanta. Howard's voice softened. I think you should talk to her. If anyone knows what Donovan is capable of, it's the woman who was married to him when everything went wrong. I looked at my laptop screen at my daughter's face behind sunglasses, at the man whose hand rested on her back. 3 visits in 5 days, structured cash deposits, a buried scandal, an ex-wife with answers. Book me a flight, I said, tomorrow if possible. Already done. You leave Logan at 6 a.m., land in Atlanta by 9:30. He hesitated. Carolyn, whatever you find, I need to know Howard. I need to know what my daughter has gotten herself into. Or what she'd planned. The thought came unbidden and I couldn't push it away. I hung up and stared at those photographs for another hour, studying Olivia's body language. The casual intimacy, the pattern that spoke of routine rather than accident. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia, Mom, sorry, I've been MIA. Crazy week at work. Dinner Sunday. Love you. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop, turned off the kitchen lights, and went upstairs to pack for Atlanta. The Delta flight to Atlanta left Logan at 6 in the morning, climbing through low clouds over Massachusetts. I'd told Jordan I was flying south for client meetings, a pharmaceutical distributor expanding our partnership. He'd texted back a thumbs up and, "Good luck, Mom." The lie sat heavy in my chest, but I couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. I'd chosen a window seat near the back, hoping my closed eyes would discourage conversation. The incisions from surgery still pulled when I moved a reminder I was supposed to be resting, not flying south, chasing answers. My phone buzzed as we reached cruising altitude. "Howard." "You're up early," I said quietly. "I've been up all night." His voice was rough. "Carolyn, I found the Atlanta case file. You need to hear this before you land." I pressed the phone closer, conscious of the sleeping businessman across the aisle. "Go ahead." 2015, Dr. Richard Donovan was head of gynecological oncology at Emory University Hospital. A patient came in with a benign ovarian cyst routine exactly like yours. Papers rustled. Her name was Margaret Harrison, 50 years old, sales executive, married 2 kids in college. My stomach tightened. Donovan performed the initial biopsy. The pathology came back clean, no abnormalities. But when Mrs. Harrison came for her follow-up, Donovan told her the results showed stage 3 ovarian cancer. Aggressive, immediate surgery required, followed by chemotherapy. I stared at the clouds below. "You just said the pathology was clean." The original report was clean, but the report Donovan showed her, the one he entered into her file, showed malignant cells. Advanced stage. Howard's voice went flat. He falsified it. He altered the pathology results and convinced a healthy woman she was facing an end-of-life situation. The cabin felt airless. Why would he? Money. Insurance fraud. Unnecessary surgeries bill higher. Chemotherapy follow-up scans. Consultations, it adds up. His keyboard clicked. Mrs. Harrison underwent a complete hysterectomy. 6 months of chemo. Lost her hair, her job, nearly lost her marriage. I closed my eyes, feeling the plane's vibration. How did they find out? Her oncologist got suspicious the chemo wasn't working because there was nothing to treat. He requested the original biopsy slides, had them independently reviewed. Completely benign. The forgery was obvious. And Donovan denied everything. Claimed clerical error, a mix-up. But the evidence was clear. Howard paused. Mrs. Harrison's family sued. Settlement in early 2016, $750,000. Emory asked Donovan to resign. Medical board investigated but couldn't prove intent to defraud, so he kept his license. $750,000. The same amount in suspicious deposits Howard had traced. What happened to Mrs. Harrison? The silence lasted 3 heartbeats too long. She took her own life in August 2016, 6 months after the settlement. His voice was gentle. The lawsuit documents include her therapist's statement. She couldn't recover from the violation of trust, the unnecessary trauma. That's enough. My voice came out sharp. I understand. Carolyn, you need to check your own surgical records. If Donovan did this before, I know, I'll look when I'm back in Boston. Be careful in Atlanta. The captain's voice crackled overhead. Flight attendants prepare for landing. Through the window, the clouds had broken. Below Atlanta, spread out in the morning sun, Interstate 85 already packed with traffic. Somewhere down there, Diane Fletcher was waiting to tell me more about the man who'd had his hands inside my body while I lay unconscious. The man my daughter had been visiting 3 times a week. I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the window. Margaret Harrison. 50 years old, just like me. Sales executive. A routine ovarian procedure. If Donovan had done that to her, falsified her records, put her through unnecessary treatment that eventually drove her to take her own life, what had he planned to do to me? And why was my daughter involved? Aurora Coffee sat on a tree-lined street in Virginia Highland, the kind of Atlanta neighborhood that reminded me of Cambridge renovated bungalows, independent bookstores, Sunday afternoon quiet. Diane Fletcher was already waiting at a corner table back to the wall. She looked younger than 47, but her eyes had the wary quality of someone who'd learned not to trust easily. Mrs. Hayes, she stood offering her hand, firm grip. Thank you for coming. Thank you for meeting me. I sat, noting the manila folder and small black USB drive between us. Howard said you might help me understand what's happening. She studied me, then picked up her coffee, black, no sugar. How much did Howard tell you about my marriage to Richard? That you were married from 2008 to 2016, divorced after the Margaret Harrison lawsuit. At Margaret's name, something flickered across her face. The lawsuit was the final straw, but the problem started long before. She leaned back. Richard is controlling, meticulous. Everything has to be exactly as he wants it. When I met him, I thought he was just detail-oriented, but it was more than that. She took a sip of coffee. He keeps journals, detailed records of everything conversations perceived, slights people who've wronged him. Hours writing in them, planning how to respond to anyone who challenged him. Her fingers tightened around the cup. When the Margaret Harrison case broke, I found journals going back years, plans for handling the investigation, manipulating the narrative who to blame. My throat felt dry. Did you know about what he did to her? Not until too late. He kept that completely separate. She met my eyes. But when I found out what he was capable of, I couldn't stay. I filed for divorce in March 2016. Howard said there were consequences. A bitter smile. Richard doesn't forgive, ever. 2 weeks after the divorce, someone keyed my car. Security cameras mysteriously down. A month later, my daughter's college applications were delayed at 3 universities. She stopped, composed herself. Small things, untraceable, but systematic. You couldn't prove it was him. No, that's his specialty, plausible deniability. She pushed the USB drive toward me. This is everything I kept. Copies of his journals, the ones his lawyer didn't seal. The Margaret Harrison case files, internal emails from Imagery showing how long they knew about his irregularities. I stared at the small device. Why give this to me? Because Howard told me about your daughter. The envelope, the money, the secret meetings. Her voice softened. And because I know Richard. If he's involved with your daughter, he has a plan. It's not just about money, it never is. It's about control, getting what he wants and making sure anyone in his way regrets it. The cafe felt too warm. What do you think he wants? I don't know, but I know his patterns. She leaned forward. When someone crosses Richard, he doesn't just get angry. He gets even, methodically, over years if necessary. The Margaret Harrison case, yes, it was insurance fraud, but it was also about proving he could manipulate an entire system and get away with it. Until he didn't. Exactly. The lawsuit, the settlement, losing Imagery, those were humiliations. Her eyes held mine. Richard Donovan doesn't handle failure well, and he's had 6 years to plan his next move. 6 years since Edward's death. Since Olivia became CFO. Since I'd become sole owner of Hayes Pharmaceuticals. My hands felt cold. You think he targeted me specifically? I think Richard doesn't do anything by accident. She stood picking up her purse. Mrs. Hayes, I don't know what role your daughter plays. Maybe she's a victim. Maybe she's a participant. But I know this Richard never forgives, and he always has an endgame. She touched the USB drive, a protective gesture. Whatever you find on there, be careful. Watch your back. Then she was gone, disappearing into the Atlanta afternoon. I sat there for 20 minutes staring at that small black device before my phone buzzed. Delta notification my return flight was delayed 3 hours due to mechanical issues. 3 more hours in Atlanta. 3 more hours before I could get home and check my own medical records. 3 more hours to wonder what Richard Donovan had planned for me and whether my own daughter had helped him plan it. The Delta Sky Club at Hartsfield-Jackson was half empty when I settled into a corner chair laptop balanced on my knees. 5 o'clock had come and gone. The departure board showed 7:30 p.m. in red letters. I plugged in Diane's USB drive. 3 folders appeared. Divorce documents, Imagery investigation journals, 2012 to 2016. I started with the journals. Richard Donovan was meticulous. Each entry dated time-stamped, written in precise block letters. I scrolled through 2012-2013 hospital politics perceived slights. Then March 2014. The system protects the incompetent. Medical boards, ethics committees all designed to shield mediocrity and punish excellence. If the system won't deliver justice, I'll build my own. My hands felt cold. By October 2014, the entries shifted: patient initials, appointment dates, procedure codes. No names too careful. But the pattern was clear. He was selecting targets. I switched to the Emery investigation folder. Internal emails, hospital administrators discussing irregularities in Dr. Donovan's outcomes. A compliance officer noting 8 pathology reports over 3 years had shown discrepancies when reviewed by external auditors. 8 patients who'd undergone unnecessary procedures based on falsified results. Margaret Harrison had been one. 7 others whose lives Donovan had altered for profit and twisted justice. The final email was from January 2016 settlement reached with Harrison family. Dr. Donovan to resign March 1st. All investigation materials sealed per legal counsel. Emery had buried it, paid $750,000 and let Donovan walk away with his license. The divorce documents folder showed Diane's petition dated March 15th, 2016, 2 weeks after his resignation. Allegations of controlling behavior, emotional manipulation, retaliation. Her lawyer had recommended not specifying details because Donovan's team would contest aggressively. She'd gotten out. Donovan got his fresh start in Boston, at Mass General, where he'd met me. My phone buzzed, boarding announcement. I closed the laptop, but those words stayed with me through the gate, through the 2-hour flight back to Boston. I'll build my own justice. What did justice look like to a man who'd falsified 8 reports? We landed at Logan just after midnight. I took a rideshare home, watching familiar streets roll past empty at this hour streetlights, reflecting off the Charles River. By the time I unlocked my front door in Beacon Hill, it was nearly 1 in the morning. The kitchen light was on. I stopped in the doorway. Olivia sat at the island, a mug of tea in her hands, still dressed in work clothes, silk blouse, tailored pants. She looked up and smiled. "Mom, you look exhausted. How was your trip?" I set down my bag slowly. She wasn't supposed to be here. She had her own apartment in the South End. It was fine, long. My voice sounded normal. "What are you doing here?" "I had a late meeting nearby, thought I'd stop by. Your text said you'd be back tonight." She sipped her tea casual. "I was worried about you traveling so soon after surgery. How are you feeling?" "Tired, but the client meeting went well." "Which client?" The question was light conversational, but I caught the slight sharpness beneath it the way her eyes tracked my movements. She was checking, making sure my story held up. Patterson Medical Supply. They're expanding their distribution network. The lie came easily. 3 decades of business negotiations had taught me how to control my face, my voice. Olivia nodded, satisfied. "That's great. You should rest, though. Doctor's orders, remember." Doctor's orders. From Richard Donovan, who'd written 8 false pathology reports, who kept journals full of revenge plans, who'd spent 6 years rebuilding after Emery. I looked at my daughter, her honey blonde hair, her expensive clothes, the casual way she sat in my kitchen at 1 in the morning, and wondered what she knew, what she'd helped him plan. "You're right," I said softly. "I should get some sleep." "Good night, Mom." She smiled again, warm and genuine. "Love you. Love you too." I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed, still fully dressed. Downstairs, I heard Olivia rinse her mug, heard the soft click of the front door as she left. Only then did I let myself breathe. 4 days after I returned from Atlanta, Howard called with the kind of news that makes your stomach drop. "Carolyn, we need to talk. In person. Today." I met him at a diner in Cambridge, far enough from Beacon Hill that no one would recognize me. He slid a manila folder across the table, his expression grim. "Forensic accounting just finished. You're going to want to sit down for this." I was already sitting, but I gripped the edge of the table anyway. Over the past 7 years, Howard began $490,000 has been systematically siphoned out of Hayes Pharmaceuticals. Small transfers always under $10,000 to avoid triggering federal reporting requirements. The money went to a company called Vaughn Consulting, LLC. Vaughn, I repeated. The name felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. Howard flipped open the folder. Registered in Delaware on February 15, 2018. Owner Stephanie Vaughn, age 39. Ring any bells? My breath caught. Stephanie, Olivia's cousin on Edward's side. She lives in Cambridge, works in marketing. At least that's what I thought. She doesn't work in marketing anymore, Howard said flatly. Vaughn Consulting has no employees, no office, no clients except Hayes Pharmaceuticals. It's a shell company. And here's the kicker of that $490,000, $425,000 was transferred directly into accounts linked to Dr. Richard Donovan between 2018 and 2024. I felt the room tilt. $425,000, paid in increments of $7,000 to $12,000, always just under the IRS threshold, structured to look like legitimate consulting fees. But Donovan never provided any services to your company. He's a surgeon, not a consultant. I stared at the spreadsheet in front of me. Row after row of transactions, dates, amounts. The earliest was March 2017, just weeks after Diane said Olivia had told her about meeting someone who could help. The most recent was August 2024, 1 month before my surgery. They've been planning this for 7 years, I whispered. Howard nodded. It gets worse. I pulled your life insurance policy. In March 2018, right after Vaughn Consulting was registered, your coverage was increased from $1 million to $5 million. Beneficiaries Olivia Hayes 50%, Jordan Hayes 50%. My hands went numb. I didn't authorize that. Olivia did. As CFO, she has signing authority on corporate policies. Technically legal, but highly suspicious given the timing. I thought back to March 2018. Edward had been gone 2 months. I was drowning in grief, barely functioning. Olivia had taken over the day-to-day financial operations, telling me she wanted to lighten my load. I'd been grateful. I trusted her. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. Olivia meets Donovan in early 2017. By February 2018, they've set up a shell company with her cousin Stephanie. 1 month later, they triple my life insurance. Then they spend the next 6 years moving my money into Donovan's accounts. That's exactly what happened. And then they put me on an operating table. Howard's jaw tightened. Carolyn, this isn't opportunistic. This is premeditated. They've been building toward this for years. The money, the insurance, the fake medical records, we found it all points to one thing. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. My daughter had spent 7 years preparing to ensure I didn't survive my own surgery. I closed the folder, hands shaking. What do we do now? Howard leaned forward. We need to know why the insurance matters so much. There's something else here, something that makes $5 million worth the risk. I'm going to dig into the policy details. In the meantime, act normal. Don't let Olivia know we're onto her. I nodded, but my mind was already racing. $5 million split between Olivia and Jordan. Except Jordan didn't know anything about this, which meant Olivia had planned to take it all. Howard's voice was tight when he called Friday morning. Check your encrypted email, now. I opened my laptop. Subject medical records. Urgent. The attachment showed my Mass General surgical report. September 12, 2024. Dr. Richard Donovan, attending physician. Patient experienced excessive intraoperative bleeding, requiring additional hemostatic measures. Postoperative infection risk elevated. Recommend extended monitoring for complications including sepsis, hemorrhage. Patient remains high risk for adverse outcomes. I read it twice. Howard, this isn't what happened. I know, keep reading. Nurse Jennifer Payne's notes timestamp 2 hours post-op. Patient stable. Vital signs normal. Minimal blood loss well within expected parameters. Incisions clean, no infection signs. Cleared for discharge day 2 per standard protocol. 2 completely different accounts. One painting me as high risk, barely surviving. The other documenting a routine procedure. He falsified my surgical records, I said slowly. Just like Emery. Same pattern. Creating a paper trail that makes a future adverse outcome look like predictable medical complications. Howard paused. If something happened to you in the next few months, these records would support surgical complications, natural causes. No one would question it. High risk for adverse outcomes. There's more, Howard said. Your insurance policy has an AD&D rider, accidental death and dismemberment. If your passing is ruled accidental or due to medical complications from an accident, the payout doubles. Doubles to what? $10 million. $10 million. Split between Olivia and Jordan. Except Jordan didn't know. I hacked Olivia's email last night. Found a message sent October 2nd to an encrypted address. We tracked it to Donovan. Keyboard clicks. Sending it now. A new message appeared. Olivia's Hayes Pharmaceuticals address. October 2nd, 11:47 p.m. R. The window is closing. We proceed on the 20th, as discussed. Make sure the construction accident looks natural. J will be dealt with separately. S confirms final transfer complete. We're committed now. R. Richard. J. Jordan. S. Stephanie. The 20th, October 20th, 2 weeks from now. Construction accident, I whispered. Hayes Pharmaceuticals is renovating the Cambridge facility. Active construction site on property. Howard paused. If you had an accident, their falling equipment structural collapse combined with your high-risk surgical complications, it would look tragic but explainable. Weakened from surgery, terrible luck. I'd approved that renovation 6 months ago. Olivia had been enthusiastic, said we should visit the site regularly. She'd been planning where to stage my ending. And Jordan dealt with separately. With you gone, Jordan inherits 50% of insurance and his company's share. But if something happened to him, car accident, anything that doesn't connect to Olivia, she gets everything. Full control, entire payout. No one left to question anything. My son, 26 years old, listed as a secondary target by his own sister. We have to tell him. Not yet. If Jordan confronts Olivia, she'll accelerate or change the plan. Howard's voice was firm. Detective Walsh needs to see all of this financial records, Emery files, falsified documentation, this email. We build an airtight case first. The 20th is 15 days away. I'm meeting Walsh in 2 hours. She'll move fast. He paused. Carolyn, act normal. Don't let Olivia suspect. Can you do that? Could I see my daughter smile, pretend everything was fine, knowing she'd planned to ensure I didn't survive, knowing she'd marked her brother for elimination? Yes, I said. I can do that. After Howard hung up, I stared at the email. Jay will be dealt with separately. Not harmed, not ended. Dealt with. As if Jordan were a problem to solve, an obstacle to remove. Not her brother. October 2nd, the night Olivia had waited in my kitchen at 1 a.m. checking my story. She'd gone home and sent this email, confirming the date, confirming the method, confirming both her mother and brother would be eliminated by October 20th. I closed the laptop and went to find my phone. I needed to call Jordan, not to tell him, not yet, just to hear his voice. Detective Barbara Walsh's office at Boston Police Headquarters was smaller than I'd expected. Cramped fluorescent-lit walls covered with case files. She was younger than her voice suggested. 44 sharp eyes, salt and pepper hair in a tight bun. When Howard and I sat down Tuesday morning, she didn't waste time. I've reviewed everything Mr. Campbell sent. She tapped a thick folder. Financial Records Emery files your surgical documentation, the October 2nd email. It's compelling, but it's not enough. My stomach sank. Not enough. Not for arrest warrants. Not yet. She leaned forward. The financial evidence shows embezzlement. We can charge Stephanie Vaughn, possibly Olivia. But the Emery files are sealed 6 years old. The medical records could be explained as clerical errors, and the email too vague. A defense attorney would shred it. So what do? We get them on tape. Explicit confession. Clear discussion of intent. Walsh pulled out a legal pad. Massachusetts is a two-party consent state. Recording someone without their knowledge is illegal unless you're a participant in the conversation. I don't understand. If you're present part of the dialogue, you can legally record without telling them. You're consenting to talk, they just don't know it's documented. She looked directly at me. We need you to lure them into a confession. Howard spoke. Where Carolyn's house is too risky. Dr. Donovan's penthouse, Walsh said, we control that space, but we need access. Carl Henderson, I said, the building manager. Mr. Campbell already contacted him. Walsh glanced at Howard. Howard looked slightly uncomfortable. Carl has financial difficulties, gambling debts. He was receptive to $25,000 to allow our technical team access and ensure security footage malfunctions at appropriate times. Walsh's expression didn't change. I didn't hear that, officially. She made a note. We install equipment Friday, October 12th, when Donovan's in surgery all day. 4 cameras covering main areas. 8 microphones for audio redundancy. We test everything the 15th. And then, you make contact. Invite Olivia to meet company business, personal matters, whatever works. She'll likely bring Donovan. We need both in that apartment talking freely. Walsh's eyes were steady. You'll guide the conversation. Get them to discuss October 20th, the construction site insurance your son. The more specific, the stronger our case. The thought of pretending ignorance while recording my daughter's plan made my hands shake. I pressed them against my thighs. How long? 20 minutes minimum, longer if possible. Walsh paused. Mrs. Hayes, I need to be direct. This is dangerous. If they suspect you know, they might panic, accelerate their timeline, or worse. I understand. She leaned back. You'll be alone in a room with 2 people who've spent years planning to ensure you don't survive. We'll have surveillance backup in the building, but for those minutes, you're on your own. You'll need to stay calm, keep them comfortable, extract a confession from your daughter while she describes how she intends to benefit from your absence. The fluorescent lights hummed. The alternative is we go with what we have, Walsh continued. Arrest Stephanie on embezzlement, maybe Olivia, but Donovan walks. And whatever they're planning for October 20th, it happens, or they postpone and try again when we're not watching. I thought about Jordan's voice last night, cheerful, oblivious. I thought about Olivia's email, Jay will be dealt with separately. When do we do this? October 20th is 5 days away. We test equipment on the 15th. That gives you 4 days to arrange the meeting. Walsh studied me. Carolyn, you'll need to lure them into a confession. Can you do that? Could I? Could I pretend to be the naive mother she'd been deceiving for 7 years? Could I ask the right questions? Stay calm while they discussed eliminating Jordan? I met Walsh's eyes. Yes, I said. I can do that. If you're still here, comment I'm still here, so I know you're standing with me. And tell me if it were you. Would you walk into that room and confront them immediately? Or stay calm and let them expose themselves? The next part changes everything. Before we continue, please note the upcoming section includes dramatized elements for storytelling purposes. If this kind of content isn't for you, you're free to stop here. I made the call at 6 o'clock, sitting in my study, phone in one hand, script in the other. Sweetheart, I need to talk. Can we meet tonight? Olivia's voice was cautious. Tonight, Mom, I'm at a friend's place. I won't be home until 9. A friend's place. The lie came easily. It's important. About the company. About your father's legacy. I kept my voice soft. Please, honey. I need my daughter. A pause. Okay, where? I'm near Downtown Crossing. Actually, I'm right by the Millennium Tower. Could you meet me in the lobby just 20 minutes? Another pause. Calculating. I'll be there by 7, she said. I hung up and walked to the surveillance van parked 3 blocks away, hands shaking. Inside, Howard sat at monitors showing 4 angles of Donovan's penthouse. Detective Walsh stood behind him, radio in hand. 2 officers occupied the rear. She's coming, I said. Walsh nodded. We're ready. I sat next to Howard, staring at the empty apartment on screen. At 7:05, Olivia appeared on the penthouse feed. She used a key, had her own key, and walked in. Donovan was already there, pouring wine. He handed her a glass. Your mother called. His voice came through clear. She wants to meet. Says it's about the company Dad's legacy. Olivia sipped wine. She sounded upset. Where does she think you are? With a friend. I told her I'd meet her in the lobby. She smiled. I don't think she suspects anything. Mom trusts me. She always has. Those words hit like a blow. Donovan set down his glass. We're 8 days out, October 28th. Everything's in place at the construction site. The scaffolding on the south wall has been adjusted. When she does her walkthrough, it'll look like equipment failure. Tragic accident. Olivia sat on the couch, and with her medical complications, no one will question it. Too soon after surgery. The insurance, $10 million, split with Jordan initially, but once he's dealt with, she waved her hand. Car accident. Faulty brakes. 6 months after Mom, far enough apart no one connects them. Walsh stiffened beside me. Donovan paced. Your brother doesn't suspect. Jordan thinks I'm protecting the family business. He has no idea half the company funds have been bleeding into Vaughn Consulting for years. By the time anyone audits, Stephanie will have moved everything offshore. And your mother's medical records. Perfect. You made sure of that. High-risk patient, complicated surgery, predictable outcome. She looked at him. Richard, we've been planning this for 7 years. It's time. Donovan sat beside her. After Tuesday, you'll control Hayes Pharmaceuticals entirely. $38 million in assets, plus the payout. We'll be rich, Olivia said. She leaned on his shoulder, and no one will ever know. Mom will be another sad statistic. Her own daughter devastated. Her poor son in a tragic accident months later. Walsh spoke into her radio. All units move in, now! The penthouse door burst open on screen. 4 officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Boston police, hands up. Donovan jumped up. Olivia stood slowly, wine glass still in hand, more annoyed than afraid. Walsh read them their rights over the speakers as they were handcuffed. I watched as Olivia was led toward the door. She turned once, looked directly at the camera, the one she hadn't known was there. No shock, no fear, no remorse. Just cold calculation, wondering where she'd miscalculated. Then she was gone, officers leading her out. Walsh turned to me. Mrs. Hayes, we have everything we need. Full confession to conspiracy to commit fraud and plans that would have resulted in serious harm. This is over. But it wasn't over. Because I just watched my daughter describe my planned elimination like she was ordering office supplies, and she hadn't looked sorry at all. Jordan wouldn't take my calls. The day after the arrests, I tried to reach him, called his cell. His apartment left voicemails explaining everything. The evidence, the confession, the danger he'd been in. He didn't respond. On October 22nd, Connor Bishop called instead. Mrs. Hayes Jordan asked me to tell you he needs space. He doesn't believe... Connor's voice was uncomfortable. He thinks you're lying about Olivia. He said his sister would never do that. Connor, there's video evidence, a full confession. I know, ma'am, I told him, but he's not ready to hear it. He hung up. The weeks that followed were the longest of my life. I went to work, sat in meetings, signed documents. Everyone at Hayes Pharmaceuticals knew about the arrests, CFO charged with embezzlement and conspiracy. The whispers followed me through every hallway. I didn't care about whispers. I cared that my son wouldn't speak to me. October became November. The leaves in Beacon Hill turned brown and fell. I watched from my office window phone, always in reach, waiting for Jordan to call. He never did. I tried texting. Honey, please, just let me explain. No response. I love you. I would never lie about something like this. Nothing. She had a plan for you, too. You were in danger. Read receipts showed he'd seen every message. He didn't reply. On November 15th, I drove to his apartment in Cambridge. His car was in the lot, lights on in his window. I stood in the cold for 20 minutes staring up. Finally, I called. Through the window, I saw him look at his phone, saw him silence it and turn away. I drove home alone. Thanksgiving came. November 28th. The house felt enormous and empty. I set the dining table out of habit, 2-place settings, even though I knew Jordan wouldn't come. Turkey for 2, cranberry sauce, stuffing, all the traditional dishes. At 3 o'clock, I called him. Voicemail. At 4, I tried again. No answer. By sunset, I'd called 14 times. 14 attempts to reach my son on a day we'd spent together every year since he was born. I sat at that table alone, staring at the empty chair across from me, and finally let myself cry. Not for Olivia, she'd made her choices, but for Jordan, for my son who thought I'd betrayed his sister who couldn't see I'd been trying to save his life. Later that night, I pulled up the recording from October 20th. Watched it again, even though I'd memorized every word. Olivia's voice casual and cold. Once he's dealt with car accident, faulty brakes, 6 months after Mom. My son, her brother, reduced to a problem to be dealt with. I paused on Olivia's face, searching for something regret, hesitation, humanity. Found nothing. And still, Jordan defended her. December arrived with snow and holiday decorations I didn't put up. The company Christmas party came and went. I stayed home. On December 8th, a Monday morning, my phone rang. Connor Bishop, Mrs. Hayes. His voice was different, serious. Jordan found something, an old laptop, Olivia's from years ago. He's been going through her files. My heart stopped. What did he find? Messages, plans, going back to 2017. Everything you said, it's all there, in her own words. Connor paused. He wants to talk to you. He asked if you could meet him today. I gripped the phone, tears already starting. Where? Your house. He'll be there at 2 o'clock. Tell him. My voice broke. Tell him I'll be waiting. After Connor hung up, I sat staring at nothing, feeling something I hadn't felt in 8 weeks. Hope. Connor called back an hour later. Jordan was cleaning his storage closet last weekend. Found an old laptop of Olivia's from college. She'd left it years ago. He charged it up to wipe the hard drive. Connor's voice was tight. Mrs. Hayes, there are messages. Hundreds. Going back to 2017. What kind of messages? Between Olivia and someone with the email Dr. R. Donovan. They didn't hide the planning. It's all there. After Connor hung up, I waited. Jordan arrived at 2 o'clock, looking like he hadn't slept, eyes red face, pale laptop bag over his shoulder. Mom, his voice cracked. I led him to the kitchen table. He set the laptop down between us. I need you to see this, he said quietly. He opened an email client showing hundreds of messages. Jordan clicked on the oldest one. February 14th, 2017. From Olivia H1994 to Dr. R. Donovan. I met you at the worst time, or maybe the best. You understand what it's like when someone takes everything. My father's company should have been mine. You said you could help, that we could help each other. I trust you. You hate her as much as I do. February 2017, 7 months before Edward's heart attack. She'd been planning before her father died. Jordan scrolled through months, years, fragments. June 2018. The company is vulnerable now. She's grieving. This is our window. March 2019. Vaughn Consulting is registered. Stephanie understands her role. August 2023. Jordan's hand trembled. Jordan is weak. He'll never run the company. We'll deal with him after. Car accident maybe. Something random. Jordan's jaw clenched. She wrote that about me. Honey, there's more. He found September 2024. September 10th, 2024. 2 more days, then we're free. You're sure about the surgery? Response, everything is prepared. The pathology reports are already adjusted. If she survives the initial procedure, we have months to stage the construction accident. 2 days before my surgery. Jordan closed the laptop. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have believed you. His voice broke. I kept thinking there had to be an explanation, that you'd misunderstood. It's okay. It's not okay. He looked up, eyes wet. She was planning to eliminate you, to eliminate me, like we were problems, not people, not family. I took his hand. I know. I need to see her, he said. I need to hear her say it. On December 12th, we drove to Suffolk County House of Correction together. The visiting room was cold, institutional. Gray walls, metal table, plastic chairs. Olivia was brought in wearing orange hands cuffed. She sat across from us, expression unreadable. Jordan leaned forward. I found your laptop, the one from college. You left it in my storage closet. Something flickered in Olivia's eyes. Annoyance. I read everything, Jordan continued. Every message, every plan, 7 years. He paused. Why Olivia? Why did you want Mom and me gone? Olivia was silent. Then she shrugged. Because you were in my way, both of you. No justification, no lie. Dad's company was supposed to be mine. Mom controlled it. You would have inherited half. I couldn't build what I wanted with both of you taking up space. She leaned back casual. It was business, Jordan. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. Jordan's voice rose. We're your family. Your obstacles. Olivia's eyes were flat. That's all you ever were. We left after that. In the car, Jordan was silent until we pulled into my driveway. Then his face crumpled. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I pulled him into a hug and he broke. Sobbed against my shoulder like he hadn't done since the day we'd buried Edward 6 years ago. It's okay, I whispered. You're here now. That's what matters. He cried for a long time, and I held him my son, the only family I had left. Finally home. Jordan moved back in on December 15th. He didn't bring much: a suitcase, his laptop, a photo of Edward. I'd prepared his old room, but he hesitated at the doorway. "It feels strange," he said, "being back." "I know, but I'm glad you're here." That first week was careful, tentative. We moved around each other like dancers learning new steps. Jordan made coffee in the mornings. I cooked dinners neither of us had appetite for. But slowly we began to heal. By January, we'd found a rhythm. Breakfast together before work. Jordan shared his projects. I talked about restructuring Hayes Pharmaceuticals, the new CFO, rebuilding trust. In February, we drove to Edward's grave together. First time in years. Jordan placed flowers. We stood in the snow, not needing to say anything. By March, Jordan was smiling again. "I'm thinking about grad school," he said one evening. "Harvard Law has a program in corporate governance. I could apply for fall. Your father would be proud." He looked at me, really looked, and I saw it trust slowly rebuilding. The trial began June 15th at Suffolk Superior Court. I'd been dreading it for months, but Jordan came with me. Every single day. Prosecutor Julia Brennan was sharp, methodical, relentless. In her opening statement, she laid out 7 years of conspiracy with surgical precision. The defendants didn't act on impulse, Brennan told the jury. They planned. They built financial infrastructure, falsified medical records, mapped out not one, but 2 eliminations. This was systematic, calculated, a business plan with human lives as the cost. The evidence took 3 days, 8 hours of surveillance footage from October 20th. Olivia's voice, "Mom trusts me. She always has." Donovan describing the construction scaffolding, Jordan's planned car accident. Every word documented, undeniable. The financial records came next. Howard testified about $490,000 stolen over 7 years, 2017 to 2024. The Delaware Shell Company, $425,000 transferred to Donovan's accounts. Diane Fletcher described her marriage to Donovan, the falsified reports at Emory, the Margaret Harrison settlement, the years of retaliation. Stephanie Vaughn testified under her plea deal. She explained how Olivia approached her in 2017, how she'd registered Vaughn Consulting, laundered money for years. "I knew it was wrong," Stephanie said, not meeting anyone's eyes. But Olivia was family. Dr. Sarah Holbrook testified about forensic evidence linking Donovan to falsified records. Nurse Jennifer explained the discrepancies between Donovan's notes and her observations. Every witness built the same picture: years of planning, cold calculation, 2 people willing to eliminate anyone in their way. On June 23rd, after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty on all counts. Judge Patricia Whitmore didn't waste time. "Dr. Richard Donovan, you violated every oath you took as a physician. You falsified medical records. You planned serious harm against a patient who trusted you. This court sentences you to 25 years in state prison." Donovan's face didn't change. "Stephanie Vaughn, you facilitated fraud and conspiracy. However, your cooperation has been noted. This court sentences you to 8 years with possibility of parole after 5. Stephanie nodded, relieved. Whitmore turned to Olivia. "Olivia Hayes, you stole from your family's company for 7 years. You conspired to cause serious harm to your mother and brother. You showed no remorse, no hesitation, no humanity." She paused. "This court sentences you to 18 years in state prison." Then she leaned forward, her voice cold and deliberate. "Furthermore, under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 2, 165, Section 46, the Slayer Rule, you are disqualified from inheriting any property insurance proceeds or assets from Carolyn Hayes. Your 50% beneficiary designation on the $5 million life insurance policy is void. All shares of Hayes Pharmaceuticals held in trust for you are forfeited to your brother Jordan Hayes." She glanced at the prosecution table. "This court also orders asset forfeiture of $425,000, unlawfully transferred to Dr. Donovan. These funds will be returned to Hayes Pharmaceuticals. 18 years. Olivia would be 48 when she got out, and she'd inherit nothing." As bailiffs prepared to lead them away, Olivia turned. Her eyes found mine across the courtroom. Not angry, not defiant, just empty. Like she'd calculated everything except the one variable that mattered, and now there was nothing left inside her at all. Then she was gone and I never saw her again. Jordan took my hand as we stood. "It's over," he said. "Yes," I whispered. "It's over." The day after sentencing, Jordan graduated from Harvard Law School. I sat in Harvard Yard watching my son walk across that stage in cap and gown, and for the first time in months, I felt pure, uncomplicated joy. Edward should have been there, but I was there, and that was enough. A week later, I called a board meeting at Hayes Pharmaceuticals. "I'm stepping down as CEO," I told them. "Effective immediately. The company needs new leadership, someone without the baggage of this past year." I looked around the table. "I'm appointing Jordan Hayes as CEO. He starts August 1st. There were objections. Jordan was only 26, just graduated, no executive experience. "He's Edward's son," I said quietly. "He's my son, and he's earned this through integrity, loyalty, and surviving something that would have broken most people." The board voted. Jordan became CEO. Hayes Pharmaceuticals was worth $40 million now. After everything, Jordan would inherit a company built on solid ground, not secrets. 1 year later, June 2026, Jordan and I stood in a conference room overlooking Boston Harbor. The banner behind us read, "The Margaret Harrison Foundation, supporting medical fraud survivors and ovarian cancer research." Margaret Harrison, the woman whose tragedy had exposed Richard Donovan's pattern of destruction. We couldn't bring her back, but we could honor her memory. "The foundation is funded with $5 million, Jordan told the assembled reporters. "Money from a life insurance policy that was meant to be claimed through deception. Instead, it will help victims of medical fraud and fund ovarian cancer research. It will make sure no one else suffers the way Margaret Harrison did." I stood beside him, feeling Edward's presence so strongly it took my breath away. After the press conference, Jordan drove us to Mount Auburn Cemetery. We stood before Edward's headstone, simple granite, his name and beloved beneath. "We did it, Edward," I said softly. "Jordan and I survived. We're still standing." Jordan's hand found mine. "The company is his now. He'll run it the way you would have wanted, with integrity, with purpose." I paused, and we built something good from the pain, a foundation that will help people, save lives. The June breeze moved through the trees. Birds sang. I learned something through all of this. I said more to Jordan now. Some bonds break when they're tested. Olivia's bond with us was never real. It was built on resentment and greed. When we tested it, it shattered. I squeezed Jordan's hand, but other bonds grow stronger. Ours did. We went through hell together and came out the other side. Closer, more honest, more real. Jordan leaned his head against my shoulder. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too." We stood there for a long time, the two of us in front of the grave of the man who'd started Hayes Pharmaceuticals, the man who'd never known his daughter would try to destroy everything he'd built, who'd never known his son would save it. Finally, as the sun set, we walked back to the car. "You know what Dad used to say?" Jordan asked as we drove home. "When I'd trust someone who let me down," I smiled, already knowing. "Trust but verify. Trust but verify," Jordan repeated. "Reagan said it first, but Dad made it his motto. Verify the numbers. Don't assume good intentions. Don't take loyalty for granted." "It's good advice." "It's the advice that saved your life," Jordan said. "You trusted Olivia, but when things didn't add up, you verified. You investigated." He was right. Trust but verify. That's the lesson I learned the hard way. The lesson that cost me a daughter, but saved my son and myself. It's the lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life. Not cynicism, not paranoia, just wisdom, just caution. Just the understanding that love and loyalty must be earned, must be proven, must be real. And that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you need to watch most carefully. I'll never forget that. None of us should. Looking back on everything that happened, I sometimes still can't believe my own daughter tried to take my life. When people hear family drama stories like mine, they often ask, "How did you not see it coming?" The truth is, I didn't want to see it. I loved Olivia so much that I ignored every warning sign, the secret meetings, the unexplained cash withdrawals, the lies about business trips. I told myself she was just stressed, just going through something. I was wrong. If you're reading this and something in your gut tells you a loved one is hiding something, please don't do what I did. Don't wait until you're lying on an operating table, half-conscious, overhearing a conspiracy against your own life. Trust your instincts. Check the financial records. Ask the hard questions. Verify what people tell you, even especially when it's family. Trust but verify isn't just a Cold War slogan. It's a survival principle I learned the hardest way possible. I used to think grandma's stories about family betrayal were exaggerations, old tales meant to scare us into being cautious. My own grandmother once told me, "Carolyn blood doesn't always mean loyalty." I nodded politely, but I didn't truly believe her. Now I do. Olivia shared my DNA, my last name, my home, and yet she saw me only as an obstacle to wealth and power. That realization broke something in me that no amount of money or justice could ever fully repair. But here's what I want you to understand. Even in the darkest family drama stories, there can be redemption. Not for everyone. Olivia made her choice, and she's paying for it, but for those who remain. Jordan and I rebuilt our relationship from ruins. We chose forgiveness over bitterness, healing over revenge. Some bonds break under pressure, others grow stronger. We chose the latter, and that choice saved us both. I've also learned that God doesn't give us trials to destroy us. He gives them to teach us. I'm not a particularly religious woman, but lying in that hospital bed, realizing my own child wanted me gone, I prayed harder than I ever had in my life. And somehow I was given the clarity to act, the courage to investigate, and the strength to see it through. Faith didn't make me passive, it made me vigilant. The lessons I carry now are simple but profound. First, love does not require blindness. You can love someone deeply and still hold them accountable. Second, protect the vulnerable. Margaret Harrison lost her life because no one questioned a doctor's authority. We created her foundation so her suffering would mean something. Third, true family stands by you in darkness. Jordan proved that. Blood relation means nothing if there's no loyalty, no love, no trust. I know many of you have your own grandma stories, tales passed down about relatives who stole inheritances, spouses who betrayed vows, children who turned their backs. Maybe you heard them at Thanksgiving dinners or during quiet evenings on the porch. Those grandma stories aren't just folklore. They're warnings wrapped in love. Some of you are living through your own family drama stories right now. If that's you, please hear me. You are not alone, and you are not powerless. Document everything. Seek help from people you trust. And above all, never sacrifice your safety for the sake of keeping the peace. Jordan and I are still healing. Some days are harder than others. But we're here, we're alive, and we're building something better. The Margaret Harrison Foundation is thriving. Hayes Pharmaceuticals is stronger than ever, and my son has become the kind of leader I always hoped he'd be. That's what matters. Trust but verify, always. Final note. This content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages are entirely useful. If this style doesn't suit you, that's okay. Please seek content that better fits your needs.